Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Career Development Masterclass hosted by SheMentors Initiative. My name is Dr. Nuratu, and I will be walking us through the events of the day. I'm very excited for today's activities because I believe we are all impacted by some of the topics that will be discussed today in one way or the other. I mean, we are all at different stages of our career development, whether it's we're just starting out, we're in it, we're trying to grow. So there are a lot of conversations that will happen from inception to implementation to growth, right? We will talk about things like how to build a resume, how to do a cover letter, how to prepare for interviews. And then when you have the job, how to leverage your opportunities on that job to grow and build yourself towards leadership and impact. So before we go ahead with the speakers for today, let me give you a little bit of background on how we're going to navigate the activities of the day. So it's 11 a.m. and we're at the introduction stage. In 15 minutes, the presentation would start with our first speaker. Hopefully at 11:50, the guest speaker discussions would happen where there will be a lot of engagement between me and the guest speaker. At 12:30, we will start taking questions, whether they are on video or not. And by 1 p.m., we will open up the chat to conversation as well. And depending on how those questions and answers go, we would hopefully close at 1:30 p.m. So who are we at SheMentors Initiative? SheMentors Initiative is a virtual network and a community designed for women to access mentorship and career coaching by connecting with successful women from various fields of corporate, entrepreneurial, and academic fields. We provide an enabling environment for women to seek advice in different areas of entrepreneurial or business growth areas or career growth areas. We provide that guidance free of charge. Our mission is to connect the next generation of young women with advice, opportunities, insights, and tools to succeed in the workforce and in business. You can find us on our website, www.shementorsinitiative.org, where you will be able to create a free account to become a member. And we have paid memberships for more advanced members like corporate entities or groups. The ways that you can get support from us are by accessing free one-to-one career consultations in form of mentoring or coaching sessions, monthly upskilling support, digital webinar resources and other resources, monthly opportunities email that will let you know what opportunities in terms of capacity building or job opportunities are out there for you based on the profile information that you've provided to the website. So for today's masterclass, these are the outcomes. We hope to be able to discuss personal branding for the purpose of career growth, how to position yourself for growth in the workplace, transitioning from self-employment to paid employment, the role of career mentors and workplace sponsors in career growth development, how to know the time is right for you to transition out of a particular job. I mean, this is something that we know a lot of us have to deal with, especially with the recent pandemic. A lot of job security issues came up, so we would be exploring conversations around that topic. Also, how to develop a personal career strategy. Our first speaker for today is Mrs. Chidinma Emodi. Chidinma is a trained human resource practitioner with years of experience in people management, business operations management, and administration across various sectors such as finance, tech, donor-funded development projects, hospitality. She has a huge track record of building people in terms of career development, and she is one of the mentors at SheMentors Initiative. Our guest speaker for today is Mr. Yemi Fasho. If you're in Nigeria and you've not heard of Mr. Yemi Fasho and you've been looking for a job or you've had different jobs, then I think maybe you need to expand your network, perhaps on LinkedIn. You need to go and check him out. He is a very seasoned HR professional and currently works at 7up Bottling Company as a COO, designing strategies and executing same for the corporate service enabling functions. He would be coming up later after the presentation and lecture by Chidimma. So without much conversation or delays, let's proceed with Mrs. Chidimma. Chidimma, take the reins.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to have you all here. And thank you, Nuratu, for having to put this together. It's quite an exciting opportunity and exciting time to be here. So I'll be sharing my screen. Our conversation this morning for me, I would be presenting most of the time, and at some point there'll be questions. It's also important to note that a few questions might arise from my conversation or from my presentation. So you can always take note of that, so that when the opportunity comes to ask questions, you can quickly ask them. Maybe at the point when the guest speaker will be having the interaction with the participants and our host anchoring the session. So thank you again, Nuratu. Thank you also for the introduction that you have done. Okay, she has introduced me. I've been in HR practice for a few years, and for me, I've come to realize that most times behaviors that we see in the workplace are mostly driven by people not knowing what is expected of them. I strongly believe that if people knew better, they would definitely do better. Before we proceed, I'm sure we all received our workbook, the participants' workbook in advance. Please, I would expect that we would have completed some parts of the workbook, taking time to look through the workbook to know at what point we'll be completing which parts of the workbook. The workbook has 4 parts, and during the course of our discussions today, you would see at some point where you would have to reference some parts of your workbook. Before we fully deep dive into today, I just want to handle a few housekeeping before we continue. Like I said earlier, if you have questions, you can put them down, and when the chat window is open, you can put in your questions, or when the host requests video questions, you can ask. But as we go on, please, Nora, if you need to call my attention to anything, please feel free to do so. And I know that sometimes some of us have things that help us bypass the being mute during the program. So please, just from time to time, check that you're muted so that we don't have interferences and distractions. Every now and again, you might see me look away from my screen. I may be looking at my notes somewhere or anything. So don't let that distract you. Don't think I'm not with you all in this. Okay. So today, for my part of the presentation, I'll be covering 4 major topics. We'll start with personal branding, and then we'll talk about how we can position ourselves for growth within the workplace, positioning ourselves for a successful career. And then we'll also talk about what is of importance if for any reason you choose to return to paid employment from having been self-employed for a while. And of course, in today's world of work, hinging upon what happened last year, 2020, COVID-19 and all of that, a lot has changed between December 2019 and today. So we would also be talking about today's world of work, and how that has come to affect us as individuals, as employees, and even as business owners, because I'm sure there might be a few of us who are self-employed persons in this webinar today. And at the end of the webinar, there will definitely be an opportunity for feedback and questions and answers. So it will be completely interactive. So let's If you don't have your notes, bring your notes and take down something today. Okay, this is interesting. I'm sure when you look at this, a few people might feel like lady, our friend here, Alice. Some people might feel that they feel like slapping their bosses, or they want to fight their bosses, or they feel that their bosses are the challenges that they have at the workplace at this time. On the other hand, some people feel stagnated. They feel you might have been in a particular position for too long. You're not growing, you're not being promoted. Is there any reason why? Is there something I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not doing? Why have I remained, at a particular spot? Why is the company not giving me the opportunity for growth? What do I need to do? So during the course of our conversations today, we hope that it will be enlightening enough so that we see gaps, we see things that we need to do, in order to position ourselves for growth within our workplace. We can always make growth happen for ourselves. I always say that I am directly responsible for my growth, my career growth, my growth within my workplace or wherever it is I find myself. Okay, so let's get into the crux of the matter today: personal branding for career growth. I'm sure a lot of us, personal branding will not sound new, will not sound like a new terminology. Even if personal branding sounds new, branding as a word may not particularly sound new. I wonder, I'm sure when you think about it, when you look around, you'd wonder why a lot of companies invest so much in branding and corporate communications. They invest so much in image and presenting a particular image to their consumers, to their customers. Now, this is not, it's no longer, branding has become much more than it used to be. And if companies can position themselves for certain things, individuals also have to position themselves to achieve certain results. And in doing that, that's what personal branding actually helps you do. So by personal branding, you're talking about its importance both internally and externally. Personal branding internally, we talk about what's of importance to you, what your values are, your belief system, the kind of work you like to do, what it is you enjoy doing. And externally, of course, you have to position yourself such that people see you, or the kind of people, the kind of employers you want to work with, or you want your skills to be of value to. You have to position yourself in such a way that those employers can, so to speak, notice you. So that's the role of the place of personal branding actually in growing your career. So we're going to be looking at how your cover letter basically tells your story, tells your brand story. So when the guys in corporate communications in your companies are responsible for telling your company's brand story, your cover letter tells that brand story for you as an individual. And of course, how do you leverage technology in getting your brand story across? You're getting your brand story across, you're also trying to get across what your personal brand identity is. Getting that across to whoever is listening, to potential employers, to potential recruiters, even to just regular people in your social circle. And everything that happens to you in life forms a part of your brand story. Even when things don't turn out quite well, sometimes people have lost jobs and they might have been disengaged for whatever reason. All of those things form part of your story. So when we'll be talking about your exit statement, it's very important that we have that on lockdown so that you realize that it forms part of your brand story when you choose to tell your brand story. Some years back, I listened to a TED talk that was hosted by Talaya Waller, yes. And the primary message she was trying to pass across was that the future of branding is personal. So she explored many contexts, but one thing stood out, that every one of us has a personal brand. And personal brand is a powerful tool. But now the issue is that a lot of us don't know how to manage our personal brand strategically and effectively, and most importantly, consistently, because you have to tell the same story consistently. You have to present the same image consistently. So you're not hot today and then cold tomorrow, basically. So all of those things are important when we talk about personal branding. A lot of us are on social channels. In fact, if there's anybody on this webinar today who is not on one social channel or the other, I'll be surprised. And if you're not on any, please quickly get on one. And if you're in employment or seeking active employment, please get on LinkedIn. At least that's the basic. Just start from there. Start from somewhere. But what this graph, this representation shows us is that 72% of recruiters use LinkedIn to source potential candidates. Now, this report was in 2020, last year. It was in November 2020, a report. And this was, of course, in the peak of coronavirus and all of that. That's 72% of recruiters using LinkedIn. In 2016, 2017, this was about 90%, 92%. Now, what has changed between 2016 and 2020 is that back in 2016, a lot of recruiters used LinkedIn, but paid less attention to Instagram, Facebook, and all the other social channels that we think is just for groove, for vibes, so to speak. And then LinkedIn was more like the professional, image. But what has changed, through the years up until 2020 is that more recruiters have also started using Instagram and Facebook and Twitter as well. So if the number of recruiters using LinkedIn has reduced, doesn't mean that the number of recruiters using social channels as a whole has reduced. No, that number has increased. So what I'm trying to get at is now there is no difference between professional social media, social channel, and the non-professional social channel. So you see some people have a very professional image, professional look, professional outlay on LinkedIn. And then when you visit their Instagram page, it's all, everything, And well, depending on the industry you work in, there is no such thing as, I don't know, but you have to remember that consistency is key. So I don't want to see you all prim and proper on LinkedIn, and then I see you on Facebook or on Instagram. A friend has posted a drunk video of you and tagged you, and you're almost half undressed and all of that on Instagram. So you're supposed to present a total package on your social channels. So that is what personal branding is about: consistency and being effective in the message you're sending across. The same thing applies to what it is you write, what it is you comment, because your values are represented in what it is you say, your opinions. So we're not saying people shouldn't have political views or whatever opinions they have as to whatever subject matters they're speaking about. But when your views and opinion become such that they are opposing to the values of whatever organization you're trying to work in, you know that definitely that marriage is not going to work. Nobody is going to source you from that company because you're putting out information that is opposite of what it is they believe in. So that is why it's very important, whatever image, whatever things we communicate on our social channels actually is a true reflection of who we are. Now, to talk about your cover letters. First question you ask is my cover letter persuasive enough? Does somebody read my cover letter and want to have a further conversation with me? Do I send my cover letter in somewhere and this person becomes interested in inviting me for an interview or wanting to know me better? So your cover letter should be able to send a message across that leaves an impression so that whoever has read it really wants to get to know you. So your cover letter covers three main aspects of who you are. So the introductory part of your cover letter talks about who you are, what you're doing at the moment, what you have done in the past, what you're hoping to do, and most especially, what role you are interested in applying to at this organization. So, because sometimes some people send in cover letters and, like maybe they take the word cover literally, so covering everything. I just want to work in this organization, so anything you find. No, your cover letter has to be specifically tied to a particular role you are applying to. It has to provide clear information as to who you are, your current job role, the exact role you want to apply for. And in preparing your cover letter, it's very important that you make references to your past experiences that tie into the current role that you are applying for. So your past experiences, your past accomplishments, and of course your values. Those are the things that make you who you are. So these values that match what it is this employer believes in. And remember, when employers put out job advertisements and they put out job descriptions and job requirements, they put out this information. They put out the requirements for the job. They put out what it is this person will be expected to do on the job. So it's expected that when you're preparing your cover letter, you have read through the job description and the job requirements, and you prepare your cover letter such that anything you have done in the past is relatable with what it is that this employer expects the job holder to be doing. And of course, when you're done with your cover letter, your conclusion should be passionate enough. The reader of your cover letter should read it and feel your energy that, oh, this person truly wants to work with us in this company. You don't just, after you've talked about all your experiences and your achievements and everything, you just say, thank you very much. Yours sincerely, and you sign and you go. No, you have to end it with a strong call to action. Inviting your recruiter to read your resume, inviting your recruiter to invite you for a further discussion, for an opportunity for an interview. And so that way the person knows, okay, I'm interested in working with this organization. And whenever it is I'm called upon, I will definitely be there to show up and have conversations about this role. So, but your cover letter should just be one page. Any letter that is more than one page, I wonder what it is you're writing in it. 3 to 4 paragraphs is enough on a page. Summarize everything that you have done, everything about you into that one page. So when you're done with your cover letter, please read through it over and over again and be sure that it's persuasive enough. Be sure that you don't have typographical errors anywhere, and there's consistency in your fonts and the characters that you use in writing your letters. Because sometimes we read some cover letters, just from reading the letter, I know that this person cannot pay attention to details. And if for any reason it's even, in fact, there's no job role that you hold in any organization and you're not required to pay attention to details. So if you can't pay attention to what it is that concerns you, I don't see how you pay attention to what it is that concerns the company. So read through your cover letter and be sure that it is the message you want to get across, that it is actually getting across before you send in your cover letter. And of course, when you're sending in your job applications, your resumes, or your cover letters and stuff like that, sometimes you receive documents by email and the document is saved as my cover letter or my CV. Now, for you as the user or as the originator, the sender of that email, yes, it's your cover letter, right? Saved on your computer, it's your cover letter. But when you're sending it to your recruiter is receiving cover letters from 1,001 persons. And so it's usually advisable to save your documents with your name, so that if for any reason I want to retrieve this document, it's easy for me to just use the person's name to search for the document in the to pull it out from the pile of all the emails that we receive on a daily basis. So that's I think that brings us into being able to leverage technology. Now, leveraging technology in 2021, there is the networking bits. We had touched on the social channels and what the social channels help us achieve and all of that. But you can see that in this day and age, nobody is going to be hiding or running away from those googly eyes. They are everywhere. They see everything. They say Big Brother is always watching. Big Brother sees everything. You cannot hide. You cannot run. So technology has come to stay. We can only but use it and use it to the best of our advantage. So there's no dodging it, so to speak. So in networking, obviously, you have to utilize all social channels the best you can. Some people will ask, okay, how do I start? Where do I start? What do I need to do? I would always say just start, and then you can start small. Start within your own circle, people you know, be it family, be it relatives, be it friends. Connect with the people you know, then gradually expand your network. Now, why this is important is, take for instance, you're trying to apply for a sales role, and then I go to your LinkedIn page and I see you have 10 connections on your LinkedIn page. Now I'm asking myself, how is this person going to be a good salesperson? Because when you want to pitch an idea or pitch a product, you start from those you know, from your circle, from a circle of connections. So, but I'm not saying again that you should just connect with all random persons, anybody, just because you want to grow the number of your connections, you want to grow the number of your network on LinkedIn, just connect to everybody. No, you have to be intentional, but at the same time, be authentic to who you are and what you do. Your connections have to make meaning to what it is you do, to your profession, to your expertise, the companies you follow, because the companies you follow also is a reflection of your ideologies and your beliefs. So these are things. That's why I say be intentional, because you tend to learn from the individuals you follow and the companies you follow. So you pick up on their ideologies. You either agree or not agree with what it is they believe or how it is they do things. So little things like that are stuff that help you stay on track. Now, to help you get past the robots, right? When you send in your resumes and cover letters, a lot of companies these days, especially those with big budgets, employ applicant tracking systems. The applicant tracking systems also helps in terms of taking away the human factor in terms of who you know. So it makes it easier to screen applicants based on them meeting requirements. So when you're tailoring your CV and cover letter, in order to get past these robots, you have to include keywords that have been indicated on the initial job advertisement, the job description and job requirements that were presented by the employer. You have to ensure these keywords have been highlighted. If, for instance, the job description needs somebody to direct the team or grow sales or grow revenue from point A to point B, please, when you're drafting your cover letter, ensure that you include those keywords: directed the technology team, blah, 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 or you include grew revenue from 3 billion to 5 billion within 2 years, stuff like that. What's going to happen is that the robots are just going to match those keywords, and the resume or cover letter with the highest compatibility rate is picked up to be further considered for the role. Now, when you're writing your letters, try as much as possible to stay away from fancy fonts and using fancy letters and all of that. Write in plain, straight, use simple, straight, normal, regular fonts to write your documents. Italics and all of that. Sometimes the systems don't know what to do with this calligraphy that they pick up. They might think it's a virus and just throw it away. When you see requirements posted, you would sometimes see required for the role, and then you see preferred qualifications, required qualifications, or you see preferred. You can see a job description and it says 3 years experience, bachelor's degree, and then you now see MBA preferred. Now, what that simply says is that for this role, anybody with a bachelor's degree can suffice. If you have an MBA, oh, that's fine. But it doesn't mean that you're going to be screened out because you just have a bachelor's degree and you don't have a master's degree. It only says, okay, this is a preferred qualification, because the assumption is that somebody with a higher degree might have some additional skill set that may make the person, succeed better in this role. So you have to take note of all those, because the required qualifications are a must-have. It means that if you don't even have the required, you're not going to scale through the first stage. So if you're applying for something and you don't even have the required qualifications, please don't apply, because you give recruiters more headache when you apply for roles that you don't meet the basic requirements for. Okay, so now your assets, these assets build up your personal brand identity, because this is part of what it is that you sell. You're selling yourself on. You're talking about your experiences, everything you have gone through, because experiences are practical, they're actual contact with facts and events. So everything that you have gone through on the job, off the job, those form part of your experiences. And your skills, these are things that you have learned that you need to perform a job. You grow, your skills grow to become competencies, because they've become, you've become so successful at doing these things that it has become a part of your attitude, it has become a part of your behavior. So these are things you carry on to, different jobs, to different places. And knowledge, I always say that information comes to us every day from different sources, from different places. What we do with this information is what builds our experience. It's what we get, what's in turn, forms part of our experience. And you cannot underemphasize the place of your values, what you believe in, because that is the core of your personal brand. It's usually cannot be hidden. You can say someone can say, oh, I'm a very honest person, I'm all of that. And the person does something one day that you just know without saying that this person is not an honest person. So your values are there, you carry them about, they cannot be hidden. You always display them in your day-to-day behaviors, in your day-to-day displays, whether on the job or off the job. So all of these things are your assets. There are things that you can build upon, there are things that you can improve, there are things that you can increase to build your personal brand identity. So we have to pay strict attention to these things, because a lot of times people, would I say, lose track of where it is they're at and are not able to interpret all of these things and bring them into a conversation to be able to communicate what their personal brand is. I'm sure some of us have looked through our workbook during the course of this conversation. If you go through your workbook, you'll see, I think in part 2 of the workbook, where we talk about personal branding, there are some questions you would ask yourself there. And when you ask yourself those questions, please take a moment to answer those questions in your workbook, how you come across to others, how others perceive you, because those are things that form part of your identity, how people perceive you, especially. So when you're done considering all of these questions, check, and then you can draft for yourself your brand statement. Companies, organizations have a brand statement. You can draft for yourself your brand statement. 3 sentences, 4 sentences, something that summarizes you, something you can carry every day as your elevator speech. You can draft that on your own. Now, I'm sure a lot of us grew up watching Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. There's nobody here that doesn't know Mickey Mouse. But where this is taking me to actually is that sometimes bad things happen to good people. Sometimes things happen to people for whatever reason. In 1919, I wasn't there, but they said Walt Disney was fired from his workplace because he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. In fact, I highlighted that because I'm wondering if anybody woke me up and said Disney does not have imagination or does not have good ideas. I'm like, okay, where exactly is this person coming from? But it just says to you that the fact that you've lost your job today at a particular employer doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have skills that are of value to another employer. So people leave or have exits or have career gaps on their resumes for whatever reason. They might have been laid off, or you're working, you might actually be working and actively seeking new employment. You might be looking to return to work after a long break. People take breaks from work for several reasons, health reasons, family reasons, whatever. Sometimes people want to return to paid employment after being self-employed. Whatever the reason is, there's nothing to be ashamed of, really. The important thing is that you have your exit statement on lockdown. You have your reasons clearly articulated and ready to communicate when asked, because you will definitely be asked, and you shouldn't feel ashamed when asked, and you shouldn't be ready to defend or feel antagonistic when you are asked that question. So it's this bit is very important. So when you're drafting your exit statement basically is, that question of when they ask you during interviews, why do you want to leave where you're working now? Or why did you leave so and so place? Maybe you left an employer some years ago. So whatever you respond at that point is your exit statement. So your exit statement should be brief. It should be based on facts, not hearsay. And you shouldn't come off as being defensive when you're talking about your exit statement. All right? And badmouthing your past employer is a no-no. It's not going to make you gain points with the person that is trying to hire you at the moment. So never badmouth your past employer. And the same way we say practice your elevator pitch or practice for your interview, also practice your exit statement. So, but you shouldn't sound like, okay, it's been rehearsed and you're now, choreographing something. It has to be authentic and it has to feel real. And when you're communicating your exit statement, your interviewer should see that, well, regardless of what it is that whatever your story is, you're so interested in being in the present and at the moment, and you're hopeful for the future. So you don't dwell on the past hurts or the past pain and all of that. No, your statement should be based on fact, should be authentic, and should send an optimistic message to whoever it is that is listening to you, right? Okay. I've been talking for a lot. I want to believe that everyone has been hearing me, and I can go on, really. Okay, this is just what I say, a screenshot of samples of exit statements, given at different points, at different stages of people's careers. But none of these statements at any point has badmouthed their past employer. In fact, if for anything, they've praised their past employer in terms of the benefits they got, in terms of knowledge acquired, whatever it was they learned from the past experience. So these are things that you have to pay attention to when presenting your exit statement. Right. So we'll be continuing, but before we continue, I would want you to look at part 3 of your workbook. Reflect on the questions that are in part 3 of your workbook. Your workbook was emailed to you very early this morning, if there's anyone who hasn't seen the workbook. So look at the questions in part 3 of your workbook and reflect on those questions while we continue into the next part of our conversation. Okay, we're going to be talking about positioning yourself for growth. Who is responsible for my growth? I am responsible. So nobody else is responsible, but you are. Okay, and the question of value, how do you get value for your work? How do you continue to get value for what it is that you're doing? at the moment. Sometimes people have been on a job, taking additional responsibilities, but they're not being rewarded for those additional responsibilities. So we'll be looking at how you can how you ask those questions, how you have those value-based conversations in the workplace. Now, for you to grow in your workplace, I usually tell people work experience is not you just count the number of years since NYSC or since whenever you left university to date, and then that's your work experience. No. Work experience is actually all that you have gathered in form of knowledge during that period. So personal learning is very important in growing your work experience. So a few persons have said, oh, but what if I work in a company and the company is not training me? No, even if you work in a company and the company is sending you for trainings, you are still the one responsible for any learning that will happen in that training. So it's not about the company sending you for training, it's about learning that is taking place. So as an individual, what are you learning? How do you learn? We learn every day. We learn through contact with persons, we learn on the job, we learn taking courses, everything. So personal learning is important. And while we are on the job, even off the job, navigating conflicts, because the workplace is a social environment. A lot of times, relationships may or may not work out, but how do you navigate this conflict in a respectful manner? And how do you build relationships here onwards? Because these relationships are relationships that become of value when it's time for you to have value-based conversations. I was excited in the introduction when Nuratu said we'll be talking about sponsorship, workplace sponsors and coaching and all of that. But these are relationships that you build in the workplace that eventually become of benefit to you. You have persons who would speak for you when you are not in the room. So those are workplace relationships that you build along the line. And of course, when there are windows of opportunities for us to take responsibilities, for us to take initiative, a lot of times you see people pull back, say, well, that's not what I was hired to do, or that's not my job, or let me just stay in my lane. Yes, it's good to stay in your lane, but also remember that you learn also from taking other responsibilities. That's how you prove that you can actually lead. When you're able to take initiative, when you don't wait for someone to come and tell you to do A before you do that. So those are things that build your work experience. Those are things that build your portfolio of work experience. And that's how you actually position yourself for growth, whether within your organization or generally for your career. Maybe when you're deciding to leave that particular organization to another place. So these are core things that become a part of you that you carry on as your work experience. So actual work experience is non-negotiable. So work experience is not just in terms of number of years. You could have just worked for 2 years, but have actual work experience much more than someone who has been working for 7 years. So it's not in the number of years, but in the content of what it is you have done during those number of years you have been working. And when it's time to have conversations, those conversations should be revolved around value. So taking sentiments aside, it should be about what it is you're bringing to the table or what it is you have brought to the table. So those should be the basis of your negotiations. Negotiations when you're negotiating for increased pay, when you're negotiating for change in role or whatever. Your negotiations should always be based on value, what you are bringing to the table or what you have brought to the table. Okay, sometimes people forget what they have done in the past and they're not able to bring up these conversations when it's time to negotiate. So I'd say, please document your successes, document your rewards. When HR sends an announcement, oh, employee of the year, employee of the month for doing this, and this, please, if possible, print it or keep a screenshot or something. These are things that you use to document your successes so that when you want to have these conversations, you're able to say, okay, in the month of this, I did so and so in terms of percentage growth, and I took my team from here to here. So based on this, I think I I'm supposed to get this. So you're basing your conversation on facts as opposed to, but you know that I've been doing this now. Okay, so where's the proof? And sometimes individuals, we become emotional, like, oh, so how can you be asking me for proof? Are you not HR? You should be keeping all of these things. Yes, they should be keeping all of these things, but we want to have these conversations with you. We want to know if you can advocate for yourself, because you are your own first advocate. You're the one that would speak up. And when you're speaking up, be conscious of timing, because you don't also want to come off as being insensitive. Like, you don't want to come off as being insensitive, where your employer feels that, okay, it looks like this person doesn't even know what we are going through. So the company is not making money and you're here telling us, okay, we should increase your salary. No, you should watch the timing and you should be empathetic, so that the company actually knows that you value the business when you're making your conversation. So beyond all of this, beyond wanting to be noticed in the workplace, it is what you are known for. Those are your assets, what's your passion, what you're passionate about, what your values are. Those are the things that will stand out, and those are the things that will speak for you when it's time, for you to have this conversation. So it's very important that as we build our person, as we build our careers, we also build our value systems. We also build our belief systems, because our character usually is what makes people remember us. So we should also build on our character. It's a very important, very key thing to keep in mind. So now, after all of this is said, and because there are a lot of persons who maybe were in paid employment, and decided to go out and do their own thing. And there are some other persons who may not have been in employment at all, who may have just been doing their own business from the beginning. But we know that a lot has changed between last year and now. Some people want to come back into paid employment after having been self-employed. People, for whatever reason, but there is actually no bad or good time in doing that. Whatever decisions, whatever career move one decides to make, all we say is make a plan for it, plan towards it. Don't just jump into whatever decision at any time. So moving from self-employment into paid employment sometimes can be tricky, because people don't know how to navigate, or what to do, or what would sound right, what would not sound right. In fact, this report from the Center of Economic Performance, it was a survey done last year at some point, I think in August. And the survey report came that 25%, this was of course, obviously in the UK. The UK, about 5 million persons in the UK, that's of their labor force, are self-employed. And this survey was done, and they found out that 25% of those 5 million persons were actually considering leaving self-employment and getting paid jobs. Now, this was one of the major contributory factors to this was COVID-19. So COVID-19 affected a lot of businesses, a lot of people's, livelihoods, and now there seems to be more job security in paid employment, especially depending on the kind of business the person was doing, as being self-employed. So this is not something to feel bad about. If your business didn't do well because of COVID, no, it's not something to feel bad about. But bear in mind also, you have to have your exit statement on lock, so that when you're asked, you know what it is to say. So things to keep in mind when you're trying to move from being self-employed into paid employment, okay? Because sometimes the questions come up like, what do I say in my CV? How do I put in my CV that I've been self-employed? Okay, if, for instance, okay, let me use, I had a friend who recently was going to be interviewed for a job. She had never worked for a day. She had been running her business since we left school. So now she's run her business for almost 10 years, but now she's going to interview for a paid job. And the first thing she says to me is that she doesn't have work experience. And I'm like, are you for real? Of course, she does have work experience. You've been running your business. In doing your business, you've been interviewing candidates, you've been doing sales and marketing for your business, you've been managing your business's accounts, preparing your books of accounts, you've been auditing, stuff like that. So those are hard skills that you have gathered during the course of running your business. And of course, the soft skills, the communication skills, all of those things are things that you've used in running your business over these years. So when you're preparing your CV, if your business has a name, put the name of your business, put the number of the period that you were at that business, and highlight the things you did, the things you achieved in this your business. The same way you would do if you're preparing your CV based on having had paid employment. So you can still prepare your CV based on you being self-employed. Put it there. Some people may have been working in their mom's shop, helping their mom sell in their mom's shop, and they were doing that for 2 years, and now they want to come for an interview and they say they don't have work experience, but you've been selling in a business, you've been selling, you've been running the cash points, you've been balancing your cash sales at the end of the day and all of that. Those are skills that you've built over these months that you've been doing that. So those things count as work experience. So when you're preparing your resume and your cover letter, play to your strengths, because those are values, those are things that you're bringing to the table that's when you're coming into this job or into this place that you're interviewing at the moment. And it's also important to pay attention to the kind of jobs that you're applying for. Whatever it is your motivation is, whether you're driven by passion or so you're leaving your paid your self-employment because ends you're not getting enough money anymore, so you want to be able to earn money to make ends meet. It doesn't matter what your motivations are. What is important is that you apply for the right jobs that actually would play to your strength, so that you actually can bring value easily to the table when time comes for you to have negotiations and all of that. Some people decide to actually go back to whatever jobs they had before they left, to go and start their own business. So it's all fine, it's all good. There's no problem in that. And have your exit statements on lockdown. So when you're asked why you want to leave your personal business now to come into paid employment, there's no reason to lie, or there's no reason to feel defensive, or because sometimes some recruiters try to, would I say, bully candidates. Yes, I would say that, because sometimes some questions that are being asked may be asked to also check your emotional intelligence. But if you're able to focus on what was positive about your experience and be optimistic about your future, then why not? So have this articulated and carefully ready to sell yourself, and never sell yourself short. Never give yourself the short end of the stick. No, you should, or in fact, you should be at an advantage when you come into these rooms to discuss, because after all, you've run your business for whether it's 2 days or 2 months. It makes a difference. All right. But also pay attention, because coming back to a 9-to-5 life may come with its own issues. A lot of people who have run their small businesses find it hard to adapt to workplaces and working with other people. Interpersonal relationship skills becomes an issue, especially depending on the kind of business they were running before coming into paid employment. So you have to carefully build these skills if you want to come back into paid employment, because you're going to be collaborating with people. It's no longer a one-man show, or you take decisions and go. No, now you're going to have to be collaborating with others to be able to take these decisions, and you're going to have to stay open-minded, because a lot of flexibilities you enjoyed would disappear. So when these things happen, you don't start to feel disgruntled or start to regret, oh, that's why you should have remained in your self-employment. So that is why preparation is very important. The same way we tell people you prepare before you leave your job to another for another job, or you decide to leave your job to start your business. It's the same way you have to prepare before you decide to leave your business to come back into paid employment. So preparation is key to all of this. You have to bear all this in mind and be ready for whatever challenges may come up. Okay, we're getting to the end. In today's world of work, there's a lot that has changed and a lot has happened. We know that a lot of things is now being done remotely. In fact, we're having this webinar remotely. Ordinarily, before we might have got the venue and then bring people to sit down and all of that. But with COVID-19, it so happened that those employers who felt that their employees could not be productive working from home, in fact, they're the ones that are now enjoying the remote working now much more, because they've realized that, oh, okay, they can actually save costs on some other overheads, and everybody works from home. And there's even more productivity, because research actually has shown that productivity increased during the lockdown period that people were working from home. Productivity increased, and while remote working was a few people had always worked remotely, but last year made it much more, would I say, open, and a lot of people were aware to the possibilities that existed in remote working. But now that we have a lot of things being done remotely, a lot of people are working remotely. A lot of people are still working remotely till today, even though workplaces have opened up. But a lot of companies still have their employees working remotely. Now, the challenge now becomes, how do you stay visible even while working remotely? Because it's very easy for you to drop off the radar and not get noticed while working remotely. So how do you stay visible as an employee while working remotely? It's very important that you stay in touch. Now, staying in touch, virtual contact, stay in touch with your line managers, stay in touch with your supervisors, stay in touch with your team members. Why it's important to stay in touch with your line managers and your supervisors, or whoever it is that supervises your work. Remember, when we talked about value-based negotiations, or whoever it is that will speak for you, it's whoever it is that supervises your work, that knows your work, that will speak for you. So it's very important to stay in touch. So you stay in touch, you schedule, not just sending emails and doing chats, WhatsApp chats. Actually schedule for video calls so that they see you like in work mode, the same way they would see you if you were working in the office. So you're not just, you don't just become somebody's, in somebody's imagination, like, oh, okay, she's there. No, you have to make yourself, present, be it through video calls. So you don't just slide into obscurity, one day. So schedule your video calls. If you are expected to send in reports, still sending your reports as normal. If you were submitting weekly reports before you started working remotely, still prepare your weekly reports and send them in. When you send emails, expect feedback, expect acknowledgement, expect a response. If you don't get any, actually call and ask for one. So that way you know that this person is actually seeing your work, or is reading your work, and is communicating with you. All right. And then when it's time to have virtual meetings, because a lot of conferences, a lot of meetings are done, most organizations, their Monday meetings, they hold it virtually. You speak up. So it's not just that the only time they hear your voice during meetings is when they ask, can you hear me? You say, yes, we can hear you. And you go back on mute and you remain mute until the meeting ends. No. When it's time to speak up, you speak up with, you contribute, ideas that are useful, not just speaking up when it's time for banter or when it's time for jokes and all of that. You speak up, and you speak up with meaningful contributions, and you network. Still, while working remotely, you can still network with people. In fact, until COVID, I didn't know you could have baby showers online. So there's a lot of networking that can happen, even while working remotely. So you stay in touch with other people, be it on a social basis and also on a professional basis, so that people still know that, okay, this person still exists, so, and this person is still within our circle of friends, or a circle of colleagues, or a circle of, whatever, so that people still notice you. So networking cannot be emphasized, right? So spend time for self-development. Now you have a lot of time, online on the internet. You can take courses online. There are free ones, paid ones, whatever. But whatever you choose to do, ensure that it's something that is improving you and adding more value, so that you bring that value, that additional value you've learned, to the table in your workplace. So when it's time to contribute, you can contribute based on something new you have learned during this period of being away from work or being away from the office, so that it's obvious that, okay, no, she's actually doing, or this person is actually doing something of value, even while we're not seeing the person. And when you show up to meetings, when you show up to these virtual conferences or virtual discussions, look the part, because it's so funny. Some people just come out in their loungewear, like you're not dressed for work, and then you come for a meeting. Or so if there's a particular way you looked when you were working physically in the offices, when it's time also for those virtual contacts, also look the same way, so that it's obvious that you are actually making an effort to remain productive. Well, I'm not saying that you cannot be productive in your loungewear or working on top of your bed, no. But what we're trying to do here is that you're trying to present an image, you're trying to present yourself in a certain light, so that you remain in people's consciousness that you are still a valuable member of the team, regardless of whether you're working remotely or you're working in the physical office. Now, this applies for those who are working, all right? There are those who don't have, or who are working and are seeking other jobs, or those who are not working at all and are seeking to gain employment. But the world of work has become so remote. So what do you do, right? So remote job hunting can be very tricky and can be also daunting sometimes. Some people may not understand how to navigate, what to do in terms of, applying for jobs online. A lot of, in the past, most times you use job search engines, you find the jobs, and then you apply physically. People would apply and then, go and submit physically. Write letters and go and submit physically in some organizations, especially government organizations. I'm sure they still do that in those government organizations. But a lot of that has changed now. Applications are being done online. You search online, you apply online. Sometimes you apply with your LinkedIn profile and all of that. So how do you navigate this remote job hunting space in such a way that it's of advantage to you? Present a strong personal brand. Personal branding has come back again, right? We're talking about it again. Yes, because your personal brand is what will sell you online. So your image on your social channels, your image on your LinkedIn channel, when you're using LinkedIn to search for jobs, if you're using LinkedIn to search for new opportunities, you have to present, you have to make it certain that you're presenting yourself for new opportunities. You also have to be your headline. I should be able to read your headline and get a snapshot of who you are on LinkedIn, right? So your personal brand is very important in navigating the remote job search space, and networking also remotely. So your connections, your contacts online, the persons you're connected to on your social channels, those can become avenues for you to also get noticed in terms of job opportunities. Now, in searching for work remotely, you don't throw away the rules and ethics that guide us in the workplace. If you were on your work laptop, for instance, in the office, I don't expect that you're using your work laptop to be doing personal business, right? So the same thing, the fact that you're working remotely doesn't mean you should also use company assets or company resources to service your personal endeavors or whatever it is you're doing. Just imagine you are in a meeting and then all of a sudden you need to share your screen. And then when you share your screen, what pops up, what I see, because I can be very nosy too. And I just see a window, your ongoing job application. So I would say do those things on your off work time. So when you're at work, you're at work. And when you're away from work, you do personal things. And while the world of work has changed. A lot of, when you read through job requirements and job descriptions for when job roles are advertised, you might start to notice some tweaks and some changes in terms of skill sets that are required. So it's important to pay attention to those things, because you may now need to upskill yourself. That's meaning you might need to have to learn additional things for your particular area of expertise, or you may need to completely reskill. That's learn completely new skill sets that will help you survive within this workspace that you're trying to get into. And of course, virtual interviewing skills. This is another headache a lot of us recruiters are now having to navigate. When you're searching for a job remotely, you have to brush up your virtual interviewing skills. Virtual interviewing skills, I think this will be where we'll be ending it up today. Virtual interviewing can be done in two ways. There are the pre-recorded interviews, and then there are the live interviews. The pre-recorded interviews are usually one way, like the recruiter sends you questions or sends you directives on what it is they need, and you are asked to record and submit within a specific timeline. You're given a deadline for submission. So with pre-recorded interviews, you have an opportunity to have several takes, right? And submit the one that is the best image you want to communicate. For live interviews, you don't have an opportunity for several takes. It's you have just that one chance to make an impression. So, but I know most people use the live interview format. The pre-recorded interviews, I know that happens a lot in the media industry, where you submit your demos and all of that, and then you're reviewed before you're then called in. So it's important to pay attention, whatever channel is being used for your interviewing, best practices still apply. Okay, it doesn't matter that the world of work has changed. The only addition is that, okay, technology has now come to play a part, but best practices still apply in interviewing. So practice for your interview. There's no interview that you cannot say, oh, I've become an expert at interviewing. I go for interviews and I still don't get taken. I still don't get the job, right? So you practice and prepare for your interview, and you review your cover letter and your CV before you submit them. I had talked about that earlier on in your cover letter. Review for typos, review that you have actually captured what it is that the job requirements and the job expectation, you have captured that in your CV and in your cover letter. And sometimes some people show up at interviews and they've not studied the job description for the role that they applied for. So these are things you do in preparation for your interview. And during your interview, use proper body language. I've seen interviews where during the interview, the lady was using the camera to adjust her wig, right? That's very unprofessional. So use appropriate body language and use the right language in your communication. If you're interviewing for a role, a technical role, for instance, and there are certain verbiage that is used in that industry, make sure you use such words to communicate and dress appropriately. I would usually say, when in doubt, wear a suit, because the workplace these days has, modified, especially with millennials, with Gen Z and all of that. But when you're not so sure about the dress code of the workplace that you're interviewing at, wear a suit. You can never go wrong in a suit. So dress appropriately and arrive early. Your interviewer should not log on and is now waiting for you to come on. So be online or be ready for your interview even before your interviewer, and be yourself, be authentic. Handle the interview like it were a face-to-face interview. Now, the part that technology now plays in virtual interviewing is that a lot of times some of us show up to interviews with low batteries, or you don't even have the app for the interview installed. So you have to check that your devices are reliable, you have enough battery charge, you have reliable internet for your interview, and your virtual identity is very important. All right. So if you're sure you don't want to be, be called iPhone 6 as as the candidate, ensure that you edit your virtual identity, your full name, and also present a professional image, of yourself when you are online. Okay, before you come on for your interview, disable whatever alerts or calls or whatever that may interfere with your interview, right? And check your background, please. Check where you are. Use a professional background and make eye contact. Look into the camera when you talk. Look into the camera when you talk during your interview. So I think this has basically covered all it is we need to talk about, or I'll be talking about today. A lot of the others would then be in conversations going on, right? So everything it is we have done and said today, I'm sure that by the end, or by the time we're coming to the end of our careers, we can always say, oh yes, I'm proud of what it is I did, or what it is I achieved. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I'll yield the floor to our host today. And if there are anything that should want me to address, I'll happily do that. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Chidinma, for the very insightful and detailed lecture on what we need to do to get to the next level with our careers, whether we're just starting, we're in there, or we're trying to find our way out of the current career that we have. So thank you very much for that. There will be an opportunity to ask Chidinma questions around all that she has discussed when we finish with the next discussion. So we move on to our guest speaker, Mr. Yemi Fashion. I mean, I gave a little bit of a background when we started about who he was, but I would encourage you to go and follow him on LinkedIn, like I said earlier. Mr. Fashion, welcome to the Masterclass.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, so I think I would go right into asking you a few questions so that we can engage in conversation and our listeners can find gems of knowledge from it or formulate questions for you towards the end of this conversation.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay, so now we've heard from Chidinma how to get a job. Now we have the job. What do you think we should do to develop a personal career strategy? Like, how do we then maintain visibility, productivity that can lead to things like promotions or leadership, even if it's team leadership? How do we work around that side of things?
Okay, so that's a lot of questions in one question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so now we have the job. Now we've listened to Chidinma and we go out on Monday and we do all those things she says we should do on our CV over the weekend. Interviews on Monday. We look at the interviewer. We maintain eye contact. We cross the T's and dot the I's and we resume on Tuesday. So what next? Right.
Thanks.
I guess what I'll say is that we need to have a vision for ourselves, first and foremost, from a career perspective. So many people just go into the workplace as what is required without being deliberate and intentional about what they want to get out of every career journey. It might interest you to know that once I start a role in an organization, I try to define the time limit for myself upfront that I will stay in that organization. But the point is, if you have such a vision in terms of what you want to take out of the journey, then that guides the conversations that you have with yourself, with your boss, with your peers, and with the entire fabric of the organization on a daily basis. Let it be a value-driven conversation. every transaction at the end of the day should lead to you being seen as a person of value. So I started from a vision for your career. What do you really want to get out of? Okay, company A has called you on your vision. What do you want to get out of this journey? There has to be a deliberate attempt to fashion out the next 2 years, the next 3 years or 5 years, whatever the case may be in that organization. But like I said, it has to be a value-based conversation. Even if you spend a year, a month, a quarter, 2 years, whatever the time is, let it be that at the point when you are leaving, we say about you that you added value to the organization. And it just shouldn't be you adding value to the organization. It's about you getting some sort of value from the organization itself. So 2 people must benefit, or 2 entities, 1, the organization, and 2, yourself. So don't hit the Thomina Bridge and go to Ikoyi or VI every morning and thinking you are going to do a job. It has to go beyond a job. It has to be a vision, a mission. It has to be related to your purpose. Yeah, I know people can tell me, oh, but Yemi, if it's not related to my purpose, what do I do? That's not really what I want to do. But that's what you're doing right now. That is the opportunity that life has given to you at this moment. So do it well. If you are saying also that, oh, Yemi, I'm in customer service, I want to go to HR, I'm in HR, I want to go into customer service, until that opportunity for another job, another role, another profession comes. The one that you've got right now, please do it very well. If you're going to count 1 to 10 people, do it very well in that profession. Let your name be on the list of top 10. It is only when you do what you're doing right now very well, very, very well, that Chidima or Nurat or myself can see you, your line manager or somebody who's exposed to your output can see you and say, I want to refer you to another job. But the question is, if you see you in the course of job every day, will you refer you for another job? As in, be the judge. In terms of the outputs on a daily basis, will you refer yourself to the job? You start work at 8, you go on the internet, you delay the project, you delay the report, and all of that. And constantly your line manager is telling you to up your game, change and all that, but you don't. If you evaluate self, will you be in a position after a month, a year, a quarter, whatever the time period is in an organization, will you be able to evaluate your output of value into that ecosystem and say, yes, I'm recommending you for another job? So what I'm saying, therefore, is that don't just attach a paid sentiment, and I use that deliberately, paid sentiment to a job. Oh, I come on and grow for 29 days and get a pay or my salary on the 30th day, I'm happy. No, be deliberate about what you want to get out of your relationship with the organization. It is only then that you can start having a plan. So it's a vision, it's a purpose, then it's a plan. To be, like I said, be the best. No organization, I must tell you guys, no organization is ideal. No organization is perfect. So you can tell me that, the reason I'm not giving out my best to the organization is because the organization itself is not giving its best. Be different. That is a normal response from anyone, right? So you just be different. Even when you're not getting the best out of the organization, still give your best to it. And you're saying to me, Yemi, are you not telling me to be crazy? Yes, I'm telling you to be crazy. Because if you want to get different results, then you've got to do things differently. You see what I mean? So yeah, you need to approach your relationship with the organization as not just a contract that is paper-based, but also one that is emotional and psychological. If you were the owner of the business, how better will you do things? How more prepared will you approach each assignment? How well will you develop yourself? The place of self-development. Because I hear people not saying it, but I almost can read from the conversations, not visible, saying that, Yemi, they've not sent me out on training, and you're telling me to give the best. If you go on a journey of self-development, or personal development, it's not because of the organization, it's because of yourself. If you're leaving the organization today, everything that you know, no one is going to take it away from you, but it will be useful in the next organization or in the next role. I am on job number 12 right now as I speak to you, and I promise you that the things I learned on job number 1 in 1996 to 1997, they still come to play in the job that I do right now, job number 12. What I did in direct marketing, below the line experiential marketing, particular 1997 to 1999, is having a major impact on what I am doing today. I'm not kidding you. So if I developed myself along those lines, like 20-something years ago, and the organization did not pay for it or did not train me for those things, but I am getting the benefit out of it over 2 decades, who is it for then? Is it for the organization or for yourself? So I have stylishly talked about vision. I've talked about the place of action. I've talked about personal development. I mean, Chidima talked about branding. When we mention your name in a room where you are not there, what are people going to say about you in your organization today? What are people going to say? The words that they will say about you will impact how well you get ahead in that organization. Fact of life. So what is your place? What is your rapport with emotional intelligence in the job that you do? So when people say, I've been on this job for 2 or 3 years and I've not been promoted, I can easily say that you've probably done 6 months job in 3 years. So it's not about tenure. It's about the value that we see you bring to the table in the organization. So it's a whole broad conversation to have in terms of getting started and then getting ahead. Because it's one thing to get started, it's another thing to get ahead. Not everybody in the organization would do the thing that I'm talking about, that Chidima has talked about. But the point is, that is one, those things are the things that make the difference in terms of who's going to get ahead in career and who's not going to get ahead. If you think that a job is a job, I just go do what they tell me to do in my job description and I get paid at the end of the month. And that's what it is. If you think it's a job plus purpose, plus value, plus personal development, plus vision for myself, you'll be amazed how impactful your output will be in the organization, and ultimately you'll be rewarded for it. And on this note, let me also say finally that even if your current organization doesn't pay you enough for the value that you bring to the ecosystem, it's a matter of time. Another one will.
That is a perfect way to end answering that question. I mean, as you were saying, light bulbs are just going off in my head, right? I mean, you've discussed, what do you call it? Impact, capacity building, and how that leads you to career progression. So we tend to look at our jobs about what are they doing for us. But right, you said, really, for you to get the best out of the career that you want, is what are you bringing to the table and how well do you bring that thing to the table? So that is very powerful insight in there. So then my next question for you would be, in situations where people find themselves stuck in jobs that, because let's be realistic, it's not all working environments that even allow you to gain the best out of yourself, no matter how you try. So you're stuck in a toxic working environment. How do you then plan your transition without creating negativity around the previous job? And also balancing, like what Chidima mentioned about not bad-mouthing your next job in your past job in your next job. How do you package yourself? How do you then, I mean, it's interesting, you said this is your 12th job, so I mean, you have enough experience how to transition, be it for whatever reason. How does that shift look like? When do you know it's time to leave?
Okay, so I think time to leave will differ from one person to another, really. You see, the circumstances around us will not always be the same. So this is a question where it's not a one-size-fits-all. For some individuals, and again, we are also in different cycles or different phases of life. At some point, to some people, money will be important.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves about it. And I totally recognize that as well. At some point, there'll be a need for time for family. At some point, there'll be a need for time for self-development. I might want to take a break and just go back to school. There'll be a need for me to take care of my mental health because the organization is so toxic. I mean, I have palpitations every time I think about work. By Sunday evening, I'm like, oh my God, weekends are now made in Taiwan. They don't last anymore. You know what I'm saying? But there will be individuals who are going through different phases and therefore different variables or circumstances and places of work. But this is what I say. Whatever it is, number one, if it's a toxic environment, please do not contribute to that toxicity. Be the difference. In your small little corner, beam the light. So the weather outside might totally be different or should not dictate the temperature in your own room. You've got the remote control to control the temperature in the room. Don't let the weather outside dictate the temperature in your room. So in your small little corner, especially for those who are leaders of 1 or 2 or 3 listening to us right now, be the difference. So do not say that the organization is toxic and therefore you want to join the fray. Be different. But in all of that is make a plan to exit. So people have said to me several times, conversations around they want to leave their organizations and all that. I'm going to resign on Monday. I can't take it anymore. My boss, my colleague, my organization, the pay. Please do not hop up and go. Always my standard response. I prefer that you have an exit plan than you just exit. Whatever the circumstances are. But for as long as you're in that organization, please, at the very last minute, give your best to it and get the best out of it till the very last day that you're in that organization. All right? And like I said, the circumstances are going to be different. We also need, life isn't all that always a piece of cake. Honestly, at times we think that the grass is green on the other side, but the more the closer we get to the other side, we see that one, it might be a mirage. It's actually not green. It's a mirage. That's number one. Number two, the closer we get to it, we start smelling the manure with which it's grown, right? And other times, it's green because somebody is out there watering it. We might just need to stay where we are to water our own grass as well. But whatever the circumstances are, there will always be a reason to leave. I mean, I've had 12 reasons to leave organizations in about 29 years. I've had 12 reasons. There will always be a reason. So what you need to do is, whilst, yes, I was saying that life is not a bed of roses, we also need to develop some grit. We need to have some guts. Life also requires us to have some gusto. What I call the 3 Gs: grit, guts, and gusto. At times, you need to have adversity quotients. A quotient, like they say. You need to go through those tough moments. They are just possibly building you up for the future that's to come. Learn 2 things from your environment. Learn what to do. Also learn what not to do. So if you keep running away from a bad manager, toxic culture, and you jump into one and it's the same story, another, have a plan. You see, that vision that I mentioned when you ask the first question will probably serve as a guide and a compass when we run into circumstances that might be unpleasant for us to move on. You need to have what is guiding you. What really do you want to do? If you ask me from a personal experience, I didn't think I wanted to do human resources. In my head, my vision is go into the corporate world and be successful. That's all. How it was going to pan out, I didn't have an idea. So I started from sales. I sold computers on the streets of Lagos. Then I found an opportunity in direct marketing. In particular, I moved into it, and then HR by chance came along. And that's why I call myself an accidental HR by chance. But the point is, at every opportunity that life offers to us, let's do it well and be the best at it. But it also doesn't mean that once we run into one or two challenges, the best thing to do is to hop up and go. No. While you are making a plan to exit, please still give your best to your environment.
That's absolutely very important to remember, because I mean, in my experience as well, I see people get frustrated. You know, I know I had a conversation with you once where you said it's okay for people to go into the bathroom in the office and cry and then clean it up and come out and do your work, right? So I mean, all job environments come with their challenges and difficulties. It's how we triumph against those odds that create the impacts that we want to do. So let's move on to the next idea, which is, we now see it a lot, right? Even this platform that we're on is one that advocates for that, coaching and mentorship. I mean, it's so much out there that it's a fad and a trend, but it's a relevant thing, right? So, I mean, I know that I am where I am in my career because I had some very strong visionaries that I looked up to, whether they were aware or not. And then I always made sure that wherever I worked, I had an internal advocate or sponsor who could be able to speak for me when I'm not in the room where decisions are being made. So how important do you think it is to have a career coach or mentor? And what criteria do you think young professionals should be looking at when making the choice of who to look up to for such guidance or coaching?
I try these days to run away from shaking tables. You are driving me straight into it with this question. Okay, so just 2-3 days ago, I saw an article, I think The Guardian of the UK, that we have more coaches now than business owners. We have more people coaching business owners than business owners themselves. And then I did a rider on my WhatsApp status, and I said, we have more mentors than mentees. No, we have more mentors than mentees. And also we have more thought leaders than thought followers. Everybody's a thought. Everybody's a coach.
Everyone has fantastic quotes on Instagram or LinkedIn. I mean,
everybody.
Who is good.
What I'll just say to my audience right now is, don't put yourself under too much pressure. Right? Everybody's journey is going to be different. As Dr. Nora has said, she had some people mentor her who she could call visionaries, and they helped to shape her journey, right? In my own case, I had none. Absolutely none. I have never been under the tutelage of a mentor. And I am not knocking, therefore, based on my own experience, the need for a mentor or for mentorship. If you must know, right now I've got about 208 people going through a sort of mentorship program with me on the YF Academy. It's a 6-month program, so I'm not knocking it. But this is what I will say. 3 things. The first mentor is yourself. You've got to mentor yourself first. And self-mentorship is the place of all these things I've mentioned. Have a vision. You can do it yourself. Know where you want to go. Number 2, take action. To reduce the gap between where you are today and where you're going to be, you've got to take action. So action without, a vision without action. Somebody said it's just television, right? So take action, right? These are the things you can do on your own, right? The third that I mentioned was value. Value-based conversations, value-based output, value-based interactions. I didn't mention change. Get ready for change. It will always happen. Look at the pandemic. Nobody asked for it, but it hit our world, and nobody, absolutely nobody was insulated from it. So change will always happen. And then build solid network. You are a reflection of your community. So what's your community like? What's your network like? All that place for me, if you ask me, is in the place of self-mentorship. There are things that people can do themselves without necessarily having a conversation or a sit down with anyone. Okay? And then the second thing is this: for those of us who are already working, your line manager is your second mentor. Your line manager, after all is said and done, we all do these webinars over the weekend, right? and we listen to, I have another one at 2 today. What time is it? I have another one at 8 in the evening, talking about career and business and all that. At the end of the day, when we've amassed all the knowledge over the weekend, where do we go on Monday? We go to work. And we now need to put those things into practice. But guess what? Chidima is my boss. I'm going to work with her 8 to 5 from Monday to Friday. If I'm not learning anything, or I'm not letting her mentor me, I'm not sure how all the theories of this world will make any impact in my career. Honestly. So let's stop seeing our bosses as plugs in the wheel of our progress. They are partners in this journey with us. And you can say to me, many people can say to me, I read minds a lot. Many people can say, I mean, you don't know my boss. My ogre is an ogre. And I'll be like, yes, I understand that. Even if your boss is an ogre, you can still learn from them. You can't choose your boss, but you can choose your reaction. Many of us in our career journey, we've not had the opportunity to choose who we're going to work with. That's the reality. Life just brought us together to go work with these marvelous individuals called bosses. Even if they are not at the right level with you, believe me, they are still going to write your appraisal. At the end of the year, when they're talking salary increase or promotion or project-based reviews, whatever it is, this individual will still speak about you and for you. And guess what I found out in about 29 years of work experience? Organizations won't listen to subordinates most times. They actually do listen to the boss. The reason why we have invested a lot of money and resources in Chidima to be my boss is because we believed, ab initio, that she can be my boss. So because you are complaining every day, will not change the fact that Chidima remains my boss. So she will do my performance appraisal. She will tell them about how I work and I don't work. She will give instances. Let's learn to befriend our line managers at work as our mentors. They have a great part to play in terms of how far we can go. There's a great model. I mean, there's a model that maybe for about 2 or 3 days in those years, managing your boss. It used to be a 2 or 3 day program. You see, it's maybe with technology these days and everything going virtual, maybe if you go online, you can buy or you can see for free managing your boss or managing a difficult boss. So nobody is saying leaving a difficult boss or exiting a difficult boss. It is managing a difficult boss. You can still get the best out of that individual you have called difficult. And I've also found out in my interactions with many young people that they say that my ogre is an ogre, but when we check, the issues are actually coming from the individuals themselves and not from the bosses. Reality. So please, guys, you are your first mentor. Make your boss your mentor. And if you are a line manager listening to us right now, or you're going to become a line manager later, if members of your team are not coming to you to say, mentor me, something is wrong. If we see you on LinkedIn and you're a mentor of mentors and you mentor other people and you have huge following, but when you're at work, you're a different individual. Nobody wants to see, nobody wants to have a rapport with you. Something is wrong. So guys, make your line manager your second mentor after yourself. And then when you realize that, oh, there are still gaps, despite the fact that you've mentored yourself in all the areas that I've talked about, you have a great relationship with your boss as well, who's mentoring you on the job, and you feel there's still a gap, by all means, reach out to other people after them. Let me tell you, when I said I didn't have mentors, I found mentors in the books that I read. I mean, after school, it was as if I started school all over again. But I wasn't reading technical books. I was reading the Zig Ziglars of this world. I was reading Brian Tracy. I was reading Anthony Robbins. And then when I started going into leadership positions, I started reading John Maxwell as well. So the point is, you can find mentors easily these days because of the effect of globalization and leveraging on technology. You can have access to many people that you never meet because they have put their thoughts in words for us to read. So don't forget, in summary, yourself, your line manager, and then when you still have gaps, then you can reach out to other people.
Awesome. That is a great insight. So it is important to be your own self-advocate and in areas of doubt, because like you mentioned, not everyone has the capacity to be able to draw out the best out of themselves. Sometimes they need guidance. You need guidance. Your first line of support should be your boss. If that doesn't work, you can go do your research. If the research doesn't work, find someone who you are comfortable with and engage that person, let them share their experiences or share learnings with you so that you can build the career that you want. That is very, very important. So now we're ready to take questions for all three of us. If you have questions, put them in the chat. If you want to be on video, let us know. I'm looking at the chat, or does it seems like everything we said resonates without any indication for questions?
Were there questions that came in with registration?
Okay, there's someone that sent a question, but it's a direct question. Okay. Okay, so this person is talking about career fulfillment, right? They've been I'm assuming they want to remain anonymous, right? They've been in a career for about 7 years, right? And then they were unfortunately laid off. So, and they've tried to get knowledge or build their skills in areas of project management, IT, and other areas. So, that they now want to start a new career based on those skills that they have learned, because the previous employment was in a bank, being a banker. So now they have Prince 2 for project management. There's a lot of ICT project management knowledge. How do they then move around that type of career change? Because you've spent almost a decade doing one thing, then you had a gap, you learned a new skill. So it's almost like you're starting all over again. How does that work? What they're seeking advice on how they can do that.
Ladies first.
Chidimma, do you want to take that on?
Okay. I think it also happened to me. I've gone. Okay, well, it's been HR as well, but I've gone through quite a few industries. And I was also in the bank. When I was in the bank, I wasn't doing HR, but I always knew I would always train people, even when I was doing I would call that an internship. I did for 1 year, and in my role then, though technically that role was on paper, executive assistant to the project manager, but most of what I did revolved around employee relations and facilitating trainings for M&E officers and all of that. So I always knew I wanted to do something in that line, but somehow at that point in my life, I wanted more money, and I got into the bank. And eventually, when everybody got tired of the whole banking drama, and I wanted to get back into doing HR. What I did then was, of course, like what this person has done, take courses and to prepare myself for this change that I wanted to do. And after taking the courses and then writing the exams that I had to write over the 2 to 3 years, which I was writing those exams, while I was doing that, I was then looking for jobs that would give me exposure to these new things I was learning. But I was open to taking jobs that were way below where I was at that time. So I was open to take jobs that were going to pay me lower than I was already earning. I Actually, I took a job that paid me lower than what I was really earning, just to get that experience working with people in that specific field that I wanted to get into. So I did that for a year or so, and I was still writing my exams while I was doing that. But what then happened, I think what opened up for me was because I was doing that job, and I was already getting the experience of doing the job, I was confident enough to start applying for positions in this field that I now wanted to practice in. And when I would go for interviews, I had earlier mentioned, yes, I went for interviews and I'd fail the interviews, I wouldn't get the job. But I was learning as well. I was learning new things from those interviews and being able to prepare myself better for when another interview opportunity came. So key thing I did, I learned, I thank God the person is taking the courses. And then I was open to taking jobs that weren't at the same pay grade as where I was coming from, so that I could get the opportunity to learn more and position myself better for bigger opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, it's always, knowledge is never wasted, and I'm encouraged that this person is seeking all kinds of training and they even want to do an MBA. So there's nothing like wasting knowledge. Whatever you learn, you can apply. And while you're applying, you can do what is required to maintain status quo. Like Chidinma said, it doesn't have to be your ideal job, but it's the job that is facilitating things for you to get to the next level. So, and the next question is, it's a HR related question. This person says, some job advertisements ask for service record from your past or current employer. Kindly explain what that is and how one gets it.
Past records from previous employer?
Yeah. I think some even ask for pay slips or things like that. Service record.
Okay, so pay slip is a different conversation.
Yeah.
Or references is probably what the individual is talking about.
Yeah.
So references is just to validate the facts or data in your CV. To just say that, oh, you are who you say you are. I worked with Glow last year. Okay, Glow, is that true? Again, this is one of the conversations we've been having this morning in the YF network. Should I trust all you say to me in your CV and then move on and act based on that? Or should I double check by going to your previous employer to say, okay, did you work here or not? We also want to know from a past employer reference perspective, the reasons of leaving. But you can say that, oh, we can find that out without going through a past employer reference and all that. But it's a traditional practice, I think, where we only want to validate what you say, what you say you have or you have done in your CV. That's one. Two, the conversation around pay is a different one. I am one against millions on that conversation. So maybe this is not the time to say, I will always try to validate past earning. I will. You guys can quote me anywhere, and I will always say the reasons why I do that. It doesn't mean, however, that I will use that to cheat you on what you should get for the job. I think that is where the fear is. Some HR practitioners, and I admit they exist, will use that to now determine, oh, we wanted to pay 40 million for this job. Let us pay 30 because this person is earning 25. No, I wouldn't do that. It would just allow me to contextualize the reward history. But for instance, if my practice is a salary range and it is from 25 to 40, and I need to place you on the salary range, your reward history may help me, but I will not give you below 25, which is the minimum of the range. You see what I mean? But hey, I am, at the end of the day, yes, I'm an HR person, but I am also an employer. I'm wearing two hats. So I'm watching my headcount budget. Let nobody kid nobody about it. I am working with major stakeholders to watch the headcount budget. It is not a charity organization, right? At the end of the day, it is a business. And there are many sides to the decision making around reward. It's not just how much do you want? You want 40, I'll give you 40. Or no, I can't give you 40, I'll give you 35. Let's see, can I accept it or not? It goes beyond all of that. There are so many other intervening variables. I've given this story before. I'll just quickly use it to wrap up my perception around this. Went to an interview with an organization, an airline, in 2013. Saw about 4 or 5 people in Nigeria. Then they said I need to see the group CEO in London. They took me, all expenses paid, thanks to them. I'll forever be grateful. All expenses paid to London for 3 days to go meet the CEO. And I mean, it was fun. And then they wanted to give me an offer. Nobody asked me for what I was earning at that time. Okay? After all the interviews and traveling to London and back, they offered me 30% of what I was earning at that time. Exactly 30% of my salary at that time. Of course, till today, I didn't respond because I just saw them as a joke. If they had an idea of what I was earning, I'm not sure they would have offered such a ridiculous thing. But where I have a problem is where HR practitioners use that to cheat candidates below what has been agreed as salary for that role. I think it's criminal. I will not be a party to it, but I think that we need data. I mean, we are the ones who HR people are saying, oh, we are big on data analytics, right? Data analysis. So let me give you an example. I moved into an organization at the same salary in 2016, exactly the same salary, because I was already earning at the highest band of the salary in the new organization. So they couldn't offer me more. But we reached a landing to say that I was going to get a sign-on bonus, immediate cash outlay, sign-on bonus, so that I could join the organization. So before my new employers could justify the need to give me a sign-on bonus, won't they present data to Exco for a sign-off? They will, because my boss then, the CEO, could have said, oh, I found the candidate is earning X, that is the max we can pay, the candidate is willing to join, so let us approve a sign-on bonus. They will ask questions. How are you sure that the candidate was already earning at the max of that grade? If they take it to the board of directors, I said that the business is not a charity organization, they will ask questions. You've got to support recruitment decision with data. We might, if you don't want remuneration details, let's forget CVs totally and just have an interview with the guy and say, oh, you've got the skills. Why are we double checking anything if we're not double checking pay? Nobody is saying, oh, don't double check my career history. It's only don't double check my pay. What do we have to hide? If you don't have anything to hide, by all means, then let's say it. We don't hide it from the embassies when we want to go to Canada. They ask for it and we present it. Or you want to go on vacation, we present it. But the next employer who's going to have a kind of contractual relationship with you is asking that you should justify. I'm not saying pay slip. It could be a letter or anything saying that this is your current salary. Why not? What's wrong with that? It is just so that we can have decisions based on data.
Absolutely correct.
I'm sure many people will not like my face right now, but like I said,
no, but it's true.
We're
leaning into discomfort, and that is good. We need to be honest with whatever we say, whether it tastes good or not. We need to be honest with the realities out there so that we don't share things. The fact is, at the end of the day, an employer is a business, whether it's an NGO or not. There's naira and kobo attached to how they operate.
Correct.
So we have to consistently be mindful of that. So our next question says, good morning all. Thank you, Mr. Yemi Fashion. Please, this is for Chidinma. I learned fashion design and have barely worked for few persons. Please, how can I add this to my resume?
Interesting. Fashion design, I know, is in the creative industry because not a lot of persons, I don't think I can. I tried placing fabric to cut and my hands can't cut straight. So you said you have barely worked for a few persons. Please, how can you add this to your resume? Okay, great. Now, first thing you would ask yourself is, what kind of job roles am I looking to apply to? What kinds of industries am I looking to apply to? So if as a fashion designer or with your fashion designing mindset, you are actually in that creative space, you should also be looking out for jobs in the creative industry, in the creative space. So be jobs that will require you to play around colors or play around images or play around designs, something maybe with graphics or okay, now with digital marketing and digital branding and all of that. So maybe you would be looking at something around the creative space that will require you to use those skills that you have built. So maybe those kinds of jobs will be jobs that you want to apply to. Now, in tailoring your CV, you would also want to pinpoint your creativity, your creative skills, your styling, because not a lot of people know how to play around colors. So you may also want to play to your strengths in that regard. So in terms of drawing up designs, coming up with pictures. In fact, even in construction, in the construction industry, architects and all of that, you might not be an architect, but you may be able to be in that space as the interior designer for the finishing part of the business when they're done with their construction and they want to then do the finishing. Your creativity comes into play there. So you first look at the industries and the sectors you want to go into, and then play around with the skills that you have been able to develop while you were learning to be a fashion designer or while you were doing your fashion designing. So these skills will come around your interpretation of colors, your interpretation of designs, your interpretation of images, how you're able to put together things, abstract things to form something that makes sense, that is visually appealing to the eye. So those will be the things that you'll be looking at in terms of preparing your CV for those job opportunities.
Yeah. And I'd like to add to that, if the person is actually looking for a job in the fashion industry, then it might be useful to create a fashion portfolio, right? If you've sketched designs, or you've actually done some sewing, or whatever, you can take pictures of that, create a portfolio of that work that you have, and then build your CV. I mean, there's no such thing as no experience. Even if you were in school and you were the president of the book club, you could write that in your CV, right, as a beginner. So I don't know, I understand sometimes the intimidation where you're getting a job, or maybe it took you a while after school to get a job and you're lost about what to write. There's always things that you've learned around your existence. It could be things you learned in school. They are all skills you put there. It doesn't have to be that I worked for organization A, B, C, and D. It's all about what you bring to the table and what that looks like. And in the fashion industry, I know they accept portfolios, so that should help. The next question says, how do you handle an organization with low pay, slow or no career growth, high demand from employees, which tends to make the organization toxic, bank marketing precisely, still much interested in the field of marketing and retail? Okay, so this person doesn't want to leave the bank, right? But they just feel like the environment is toxic. Mr. Fashion, I think this is for you.
Make a plan. Again, I'll go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've come to the point where you've got a relationship with an employer or an organization, and you yourself have concluded the matter by saying that the environment is toxic, even the thought itself, right, suggests to me that you should make a plan. Because where do you work? I work at YF Bank Limited. That's what you say to the person, but to yourself you say, but it's toxic, by the way. You don't say that out. But even the one that you say internally is more harmful or has more impact or effect on you than the one you say out, right? And everybody is looking at you and saying, oh, you're having a great time. Some of your friends are even saying to you that you're having a great time working because they see the externalities. But you are saying, guys, only if you know what I'm going to. You see what I mean? So if you come to that point, have a different conversation with yourself about your future, right? You don't have to go through that. The options are available. One of the reasons we don't try is because we've tried before and we failed, and we therefore don't want to try. One of the reasons we don't try is because we don't like to take risks, because we love the comfort zone. And the last reason is because we don't make enough sacrifices. So the three key elements to growth are what I have just spelled out. For me, it's vision. No, it's a sacrifice, it's risk, and then it's a vision. If you have those three, remember when I started my conversations, I started with a vision. If you've got a vision and then you make sacrifices and you take risks, believe me, those three key are so important for our career growth. But we are always very careful. I know if it's a bank, we've taken loans at 3% or 5% when the market is giving it out at 20%. So comfort zone, right? Oh, at least by the 21st of every month, salary is regular. I might be complaining that it's not enough, but it is regular. Let me just stay JJ, comfort zone. If you can't take risks, you can't grow. If you can't make sacrifices, sincerely, you can't grow. So, like I said, if you've come to the point yourself, not that an outsider is telling you, oh, your environment is toxic. You've concluded within you, you don't reason the matter, and then you say that the environment is toxic. Have a plan. And I'm not saying have a plan to live in a 6 months, in a year. Just have a plan. You'll be amazed. If you are comfortable, talk to other people. I know somebody when I was at Standard Chartered Bank who switched from operations in a bank to HR at Standard Chartered. I've seen people who switch from sales, retail, into human resources as well. And at some point, I left human resources, comfort zone, and I went into sales with targets and all that. As still the same Standard Chartered Bank. So really, yes, you only live once, right? You don't want to go through a toxic relationship with your employer on a daily basis. But also do a self-review. Is it you adding to the toxicity, or is it externalities? If it is you probably do need to change at times. And I've seen this instance before. I've seen somebody come to me at one of my telco lives and say, "Yannick, please talk to my team lead. She doesn't like my face, talks to me anyhow. Nothing is right and all that." I said, "Not a problem. I'll talk to her. Give me 2 or 3 weeks." About 3-4 weeks later, she came to see me and she says, "Yannick, what did you say to her? Things have changed. She's now great. Everything is normal. She gives me what she trusts me and all that." I said, "Don't worry about what I said to her. You just continue to enjoy your newfound love with your team lead." Guys, guess what? I didn't tell this person anything. Just because she felt I said something and she started changing gradually towards the boss. The boss noticed the changes as well, possibly, and then they started having a great relationship. So at times, it's not just always inside out, it's always outside in as well.
Yeah. We need to always be self-aware in whatever we do. Sometimes we're quick to judge based on external factors, but a little bit of introspective once in a while and self-assessment would help us evolve. Yeah. So then
I also want to add for this person, since if she's passionate about marketing and retail, in making her plans to leave, she can also research. There are other sectors, other businesses within other sectors that require those skills that she has amassed as a marketing and retail expert. FMCGs, the consumer retail generally, those are fantastic places where she can also, so making your plan, do your research, and then please leave toxicity behind.
Yeah. Okay. So what advice do you have for self-employed people who are looking to have more than one income source and avoiding to be scammed and not losing his accumulated hard-earned money income from self-employment to a legit business to invest in? Okay. So this is, let me see if I understand this. This is a side hustle conversation. Right? I know personally, I always advocate for even employed people to have side hustles. You can have multiple ones if you can handle it. But this person is trying to invest their salary into a side hustle. They're having that natural fear, like, I don't want to lose my money if I do so. I mean, that risk is what this person is talking about. Who wants to pick that up?
The only thing I would say here is don't invest in something you have no knowledge about. Do your research and get data before you invest. Don't invest because somebody said this is a good thing to go into. Invest because you did your research and you have information, you have knowledge about how this thing works and what the potential outcomes would be if I actually invest, and before you go into it.
Mr. Fasha, you want to add something?
I think, I mean, not investing in what you have no knowledge about is rule 101 or is investment 101, right? If many people knew more about MMM, they probably wouldn't have lost thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
The truth, right? Oh, so this is what is happening right now. Bitcoin, it's cryptocurrency, and everybody is rushing into it. Oh, what's happening now? It's forex trading. Some don't even have an idea beyond what they see on Aboki FX, right? They have no idea, and then they pump money into it. And so, I want to do loan sharks. Some people are called loan sharks. You want to put in money that people can borrow money from you for 3 months, and you do 15%. And then if you're not careful and you don't mitigate your risk, they borrow all the money from you and you don't get your money back.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to invest in, whatever, make sure that you know a lot about it. It's a fundamental law of investment. So I mean that's I'm just lending credence to what Chidima said.
Thank you very much. So the person who asked the question, is okay to do your side hustle. Just be sure you know what you're doing. Yeah, so we'll take the last question for the day. It says, good morning. Thank you for this session. I have always had this conflict as to what career path to pursue, because growing up through school, whatever I find to do, I excel, even in all subjects. So I never really was drawn towards any particular career path. So I was relying on my first job to get direction and grow. However, I've been working so far in the education sector, but I must say there are certain attributes I have. I love solving problems. I want to make decisions about things. I want to make predictions and watch them play. I don't know if there's an advice to help me overcome this, or it simply boils down to making a decision on which one.
So what's the ask of the individual? What exactly is the question?
No, I think I understand this person, right? Because I was this person. This person is someone who is interested in doing a lot of things, right? This person is, because I used to say that I have ADD, like my attention span on certain things is very short. So so you acquire skills on different things and you're really good at those things, but you're challenged on how to put them together. And then you get a job where you have a particular job schedule or task, and that does not really reflect all the things you know how to bring to the table, right? So it's the fear with that kind of situation is you tend to not feel satisfied with your job. This is a personal thing. It's not something that the organization did that's wrong to you. It's more like, I don't feel fulfilled because I know I can do so much more, but the job I have does not give me the opportunity to do so. I think that's what this person is trying to articulate in this question.
So I guess different personalities, different personalities. So this might be another not one size fits all.
Yeah.
Some people will have the energy and the psychological makeup to be able to handle many things at the same time. Some people just want to be focused. So what I would say to the individual is know yourself. Know yourself. I mean, what's your personality like? Are you going to be able to achieve results doing multiple things or several things at the same time? You know, if you look at the DISC personality profile, some individuals, they are bring it on, bring more, I can do it. Some individuals, just give me one thing and I'll concentrate on it. I'll do it very well, and then I'll move on to the next thing. So what's your personality? If your personality allows you to handle it, by all means. Till today, I've not found one side hustle that I can do till now in my career. And I'm aware that so many people around me are doing stuff and they're successful at it. You see what I mean? But that's my own personality. So who are you? Find yourself within the scope of everything you're doing, and also find what your purpose is. Even if you don't know what your purpose is, try and understand your journey towards your purpose. There was something I said if there are repeated patterns of life, in our career, in our business, in our daily activities, there might be some message in there around purpose. Yeah. So you need to just find out what is all of these leading me towards, and that might help you to find the right answers.
Yeah. And I think because I kind of feel a kindred spirit to this question, I would also add that in the job you currently have, because she said she's in the education sector, but this person likes solving problems, like doing other decision making, volunteer to do those things within your organization, right? Test the waters. Don't just be comfortable with whatever tasks you are assigned to. Look at the tasks that are available with the skill sets that you know you have, and volunteer to do them and see whether you really like them. Because you might think this is what you are capable of doing, and then you do it and then realize it's not even something you enjoy. And if it's something you enjoy, then you now build upon that skill set that you've now kind of dabbled in while you're in your comfort zone of paid employment. And then you can grow yourself in that way, rather than being having the mindset that I'm not really feeling fulfilled, but I'm not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
So I think that comes to the end of our question and answering session. It has been a very, very exciting, insightful, and knowledgeable session for all of us. And I hope you give us your opinions. You can go back to the LinkedIn page where we're chatting about this, and we'll send you a feedback form. If there's anything you want to also suggest, we do for future conversations, we can do that. And hopefully you sign up to our website, and then we can engage further. So within the portfolio of people that we have that contribute to thought processes, we have people in technology, in education, project management, product management, startup advice, strategic management, leadership, the core areas that we can mentorship in. So if you fall within these areas and you need advice on your career or how to start a career in these areas, please go onto our website and find information on how to sign up and do so. And then follow us on socials. We're available in all these platforms, as well as you can also find all the presenters on LinkedIn, and you can DM us, ask advice, and we are more than happy to help at any time. So Chidima, Mr. Fashe, any closing statements? There's someone.
All right, thank you everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the conversations we've had. Thank you for the questions. We'll continue this conversation even away from here. Because we learn every day. Like the last time I shared with Nuratu, in sharing our knowledge and experiences, we learn also. So there is so much more to learn from all that's happening around us. So thank you everyone for being a part of this webinar. And thank you, Nuratu, for making this happen as well. Thank you, Mr. Fashion. I'm really, it's really an honor to share this platform with you. So thank you also for being here.
Thank you. Okay, for me, guys, it's not going to be an easy journey. This career thing we are talking about, it's not easy. You remember I was talking about your line manager. As you're thinking, who should have the responsibility for my career? Is it the organization or is it my line manager? Let me promise you that your line manager is asking the same question. Mm-hmm. As you're thinking of your promotion or the next steps or the next job or the next career, believe me, your line manager is asking the same questions. So let me leave it back with you. Who has the primary responsibility for your career growth and advancement? It is you. And it comes back to all the things we've been talking about since about 11 o'clock. Go back and chew on those things again, and then you'll be surprised at the difference that things will make in the next 3 to 5 years. Thank you for having me, Dr. Nuratu, and thank you, Chidima. it's also a pleasure to share this platform with you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and have a nice weekend.
All right, then. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.